Today we're going to keep the pattern very simple. In fact, the very first fill, exercise 1A, we're playing 16th notes on the snare drum, all on the snare drum. Okay, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. That's our fill. We do that with the groove. We have this. On exercise 1B, we're going to voice that around the drums. Again, this is something we've already done, but this is important just to keep in mind different ways you can voice the pattern around the drums. The pattern is 16 notes, 1 E and a. Okay, we're playing that on every single beat. All right, so right now, if you want to think about it this way, we're playing a static rhythm, 16 notes as our fill. We kept it all on the snare for exercise 1A. Exercise 1B, we're just going to move it around the drums. We already did this fill before. Very simple fill. Right, so exercise 2A, we're going to change the rhythm. Now, I just picked a few rhythms here, but here's where they're coming from. I'm just using the timing grid once again. So you have all these different 16th note variations with it. So we're talking about the realm of 16th notes. Of course, we could go into triplets and a lot of other things. We will do that in other lessons, but just to keep it simple, use the timing grid as kind of a template for rhythms that you can choose to play around the drums. So let's keep them all the same for right now. The rhythm I chose is 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. We put that into a fill. We'll keep it first all on the snare. Sounds like this. Then, of course, we can move that around the drums as well. So let's voice it or orchestrate it around the drums just like we did with the 16th notes. We'll start on the snare, and then we'll move right down the toms. Okay, if you have a 4-piece kit, play on the floor tom twice. Otherwise, we'll go all the way around. So really, every quarter note, every beat, we're moving to a new drum. That's how we're orchestrating it, all right? That would sound like this, and that is exercise 2B. All right, so now we're going to start changing things up a bit. Instead of using one rhythm for each drum, like we did the first two exercises where we orchestrated them around the drums. We could keep it all in the snare, but I'll just play the ones where we moved them around the drums. We had 16th notes. And we had 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Of course, we can keep that on the snare as well. Or but on each one of those examples, the rhythm that we chose is the same on every beat. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change the rhythm. So again, I just picked some rhythms from the timing grid. Here's what we have. Exercise 2C. 1 and a 2 E, a 3 E, a 4 E and a 1 and a 2 E, a 3 E, a 4 E and a. Put that into a fill. We're going to keep it all on the snare drum. It'll sound like this. Again, we're choosing basically different rhythms for each beat. Beat 2 and 3, I chose the same rhythm. So again, you don't have to choose a different rhythm for every beat. But by pulling ideas from the timing grid, you have a lot of different rhythms that you can choose from to create your fill. Okay, so here's exercise 2C. It says that rhythm I just played all on the snare drum within a fill context. All right, and in exercise 2D, we're voicing it around the drums again. We're orchestrating around the drums where you start on the snare drum and every single beat, you're just going to move down the toms, okay? So here is that example. So fairly simple so far. We either choose a static rhythm and we play it all on the snare drum, or we move it around the toms. Okay, and again, we're just moving right down the toms, starting on the snare, moving down the toms. We can choose a dynamic rhythm, so several rhythms that change from beat to beat, played all on the snare drum, or orchestrated around the drums, starting on the snare, moving down the toms. But that's not the only way we can orchestrate it. I mean, you can put the rhythm on any drum you want at any time. You can move in reverse direction up the drums, you know. Maybe I want to just use these first two toms. There's a lot of different ways to orchestrate it, so I want to give you a few examples. We're going to go back to the 16th note fill pattern. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And one thing I like to do is just take the first note of any rhythm that I am playing and play it on whatever voice I choose while all the rest of the notes of that rhythm, of that beat, stay on the snare. So in this example with 16th notes, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, beats 1, 2, 3, and 4, I can, which would be with my right hand, I can move that wherever I want. So that's another way I can orchestrate it. So I actually have an example of that. We're actually going to start, just for simplicity's sake, start on the snare drum and just move down the toms. But I'm only moving my right hand on beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everything else stays on the snare drum. So here's that example with the groove. So that would be an example of a static rhythm.